In a quiet village nestled beneath the red hills of eastern Nigeria, there lived a girl whose pride was as strong as iron, and whose faith was as empty as the hollow iroko tree. Her name was Adaeze. This is the story of what happened when she refused to pray, of how a simple journey turned into a chilling encounter with forces that exist beyond the veil of our world, and why, to this day, elders still whisper her tale around firelight, warning the young to never ignore the power of a prayer. Adaeze was 17, bold-eyed and beautiful, with skin the color of roasted groundnut and laughter that often echoed through the village like birdsong. But Adaeze was known for one thing more than any other: her stubbornness. While her mother, Mama Nkechi, led morning prayers each day with chants and incantations passed down for generations, Adaeze often rolled her eyes or slipped out of the compound unnoticed. "Must we always pray for everything?" she once said, arms crossed, standing before her mother. "Rain, travel, even dreams. Life is not all spirits and shadows." Mama Nkechi had sighed, laying a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "My child," she said, "it's not fear that makes us pray. It's wisdom. There are things on the roads of this world that eyes cannot see, but they see you." But Adaeze, spirited and modern, with dreams of university and city life, dismissed it all as old village superstition. It was early December when her uncle in the city of Owerri sent word. "Let Adaeze come. Let her spend the holiday with us." Mama Nkechi was hesitant. "December roads are not safe, especially before Christmas. So many people traveling and spirits wake too," she murmured. But Adaeze was already packing. That morning, before the sun climbed fully into the sky, Mama Nkechi prepared hot pap and akra, and laid her palm on Adaeze's head. "Let me pray for you, Baiko," she pleaded. But Adaeze pulled away. "Mama, I'll be fine. The bus is full of people. What can possibly happen on a 3-hour journey?" Mama Nkechi's eyes dimmed with worry, but she said nothing more. She only watched silently as her daughter climbed into the rust-colored bus that rattled at the edge of the village. The journey began like any other. The sun filtered through the windows as gospel music played faintly from the front seat. Passengers chatted, vendors at roadside stops shouted for attention, and dust rose behind them like a restless spirit. But 2 hours into the journey, something shifted. The driver, a man with a lazy eye and a cigarette stub between his lips, took a detour off the main road. "Hold on," he said. "The expressway is blocked. Fuel tank fell. This bush path will be quicker." Some passengers grumbled, others nodded in sleepy agreement. But old Mama F, sitting near the back, clutched her wrapper tightly. "This path," she whispered almost to herself, "leads through the forest of echoes." Adaeze, overhearing, rolled her eyes. "Another village myth?" she asked aloud, half laughing. "You people and your stories." Mama F didn't reply. She only stared out the window, lips moving silently in prayer. The trees grew taller, denser. The road narrowed to a single lane of red earth. The shadows stretched longer, as though the forest itself was reaching for the bus. And then silence. The music cut. The engine sputtered. And the bus came to a groaning halt. In the middle of nowhere. The driver cursed under his breath and stepped out to check the engine. The passengers mumbled nervously. But then something else happened. A cold wind blew through the forest. Not a breeze, a chill. The kind that wraps around your bones and whispers your name. Adaeze felt it. And for the first time, she shivered. Minutes passed. The driver still hadn't returned. Another man stepped out to find him. He didn't come back either. 10 minutes. 15. Then a scream. A terrible, distant scream that sounded like a man. And something else. The bus door swung open. Panic spread like wildfire. One woman began wailing. Others clutched their bags. Child cried. And Mama F. She stood and faced Adaeze. "This is why we pray before journeys, girl," she hissed. "Because when the spirits call, only those covered in prayers are unseen." "Spirits?" Adaeze scoffed, but her voice shook. "There's probably a wild animal out there or something. Let's just Let's just wait. But deep down, something was shifting in her. Something felt wrong. The bus lights flickered, though it was still daytime. And then came the whisper. Ugh. Like dry leaves brushing across skin. But everyone heard it. A whisper in a language older than words. Did you hear that? Adeeze asked. The old woman nodded. They know she didn't pray. Adeeze stood slowly, heart hammering. What are you talking about? Mama F's eyes gleamed with something ancient. They marked you the moment you laughed at my words. You may not believe in them, but they believe in you. Through the cracked bus window, Adeeze saw it. A figure, tall and wrapped in tattered fabric, standing at the forest's edge. No face, just darkness. She blinked. It was gone. Or was it closer? She backed away. Okay, what do I do? You ask for mercy, said Mama F. You say the prayer your mother wanted to say this morning. I don't know the words. Then use your own. The spirits don't care for poetry. They care for humility. Tears welled up in Adeeze's eyes. The forest was breathing now. The air was heavy. The shadows moved like living things. And so, she dropped to her knees. For the first time in her life, Adeeze closed her eyes not in arrogance, but in fear. And she whispered, if anything is listening. Sorry. I didn't believe. But please don't let me die in this forest. She opened her eyes. And the forest stood still. But only for a moment. Because what happened next would change Adeeze's life. Forever. Adeeze opened her eyes slowly. The silence was unnatural. Too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. The only sound was the faint rustling of leaves above. But the wind had died. Even the birds had vanished. She looked around. The other passengers sat still, eyes wide, whispering prayers in their native tongues. Mama F clutched a rosary made from carved ebony beads. Her lips pressed into a line. And then the child cried again, a piercing sound that echoed and came back distorted. It was like the forest mocked the boy's fear. We must leave the bus, Mama F finally said. It is no longer safe here. Go where? A man asked. We're surrounded by forest. There's no path. There is a path, she replied grimly. But it only reveals itself to those who believe. Adeeze scoffed, but her voice cracked. You mean some invisible magic road appears just because you believe hard enough? Not magic. Not fantasy. Just truth, the old woman replied. This forest doesn't just live. It chooses. Then, as if summoned by her words, the trees ahead began to part. Not by wind or man, but slowly, creaking open like two giant arms unfolding. Beyond them, a narrow trail appeared. Carved in dark soil, lined by stones with strange markings, symbols Adeeze had never seen before. Move, Mama F said. Or stay here and meet the one who walks with no face. No one argued. The group stepped from the bus, forming a tight cluster as they followed the revealed path. Adeeze stayed near the front, shaken but pretending to be composed. The shadows between the trees shifted unnaturally. Sometimes it seemed like the trunks leaned closer, eavesdropping. Mama F led them, chanting softly under her breath. Chaku naishani. Dimyo yuzo. God watches us. Spirits let us pass. Suddenly a rustle. Adeeze turned. Behind them the path they had walked, gone. Only dense bush. What is this place? She whispered. The road between worlds, Mama F murmured. Some enter by mistake. Some by arrogance. Only those who learn their lesson leave. They walked for what felt like hours. Time twisted here. Sometimes it was night, sometimes dusk, even though they never saw the sun set. Their shadows bent in directions that made no sense. One man claimed he heard his dead mother calling from the trees. Another saw his reflection in the leaves, older with blood-red eyes. Don't listen, Mama F warned. Don't speak to what speaks first. But temptation is a wicked thing. They reached a clearing where a gnarled tree stood, its bark as dark as coal, branches clawing at the air. Beneath it, 3 stones formed a perfect triangle. "We rest here," said Mama F. "Only briefly." Adaeze sat, rubbing her legs. She wanted to curse the forest, her mother, her pride, but mostly herself. The weight of everything began to crash down on her like a falling tree. "I should have let Mama pray," she muttered. "It is not too late," came a voice behind her. She turned. A woman stood there. Tall, beautiful, skin glowing like moonlight, eyes like pools of night. She wore a wrapper of shimmering ash and had no footprints in the earth. I didn't see you walk up," Adaeze stammered. The woman smiled. "That's because I do not walk. I arrive." The others were frozen, staring. Some began to cry. "You are the one who refused prayer," the woman said, stepping closer. Her voice sounded both near and far, soft and thunderous. "I didn't know," Adaeze whispered. "But you were warned," the woman replied. "And the forest does not forgive without cost." Mama F stepped between them. She prayed. She asked for mercy. "Too late," the spirit hissed. And with that, the clearing went dark. Suddenly, Adaeze found herself alone. Everyone gone. No trees. No sky. Just a blank white space stretching forever. Before her stood 2 figures. One was her mother, weeping and whispering a prayer. The other was a shadow of herself, arrogant and laughing. The same Adaeze who boarded the bus that morning. "Choose," said the voice of the forest. "The self you keep. Or the one you leave behind." "What does that mean?" Adaeze asked. "You cannot carry both pride and wisdom on the same back. One must fall." Tears welled in her eyes. She fell to her knees. "Then I choose her," she said, pointing to her mother. "I choose the one who prays." The shadow self laughed, and crumbled into dust. Adaeze blinked. She was back in the clearing. Everyone was still there, but something had changed. The path behind them was visible again. The forest no longer whispered. The spirit woman smiled once more, her features softer. "Then go," she said. "But never forget, the world is not just what you see. And the strongest hearts are the ones humble enough to kneel." She vanished. They reached the main road by nightfall. A tow truck passed by and helped them return to the nearest town. The others went their ways. Mama F looked at Adaeze one last time. "Will you pray before your next journey?" she asked. Adaeze didn't speak. She only knelt quietly, eyes closed, hands raised to the sky. The wind rustled through the trees. This time, it sounded like a song. The next morning, Adaeze sat quietly in her mother's hut in their village, Abodoani. She hadn't spoken much since returning. Her mother, Mama Ifyananya, prepared bitter leaf soup in silence, only glancing occasionally at her daughter. Finally she spoke. "Tell me what you saw." Adaeze looked up slowly, her eyes dull but deep. "They live in the spaces between," she said. "The forest, the shadows, even in silence. I didn't believe. Now I do. Mama." "I prayed." Her mother nodded solemnly, then whispered, "The spirits let you go." "Yes. Then you must pay your debt." Adaeze froze. "What debt?" Her mother didn't answer. Instead, she opened a wooden chest at the corner of the room and brought out a small cowrie-covered gourd wrapped in red cloth. "The ones who return from the forest of echoes," she said, "return with a mark. That mark calls the spirits back to them in dreams, in visions, sometimes in illness." Adaeze's heart skipped. "You mean I'm cursed?" "No, child," Mama Ifyananya said. "You are chosen." That night Adaeze dreamt. She stood again in the forest, only this time it was burning. The leaves curled in flames, and from the ashes, a tall figure emerged. Not the beautiful spirit woman from before, but something older, rougher, darker. It had no face, only a mouth, wide and whispering. "Return what you took." It hissed. "I didn't take anything," she cried. The spirit snarled. "You were shown mercy. That is a gift. And gifts must be balanced." When Adaeze awoke, her bedsheets were soaked in sweat, and there were claw marks on the floor, deep, fresh and bleeding sap. She stumbled to her mother's room. "They've come for me." Her mother sat up slowly. "It's not you they want. It's what you must give." The next day, Adaeze was taken by her mother to an old shrine hidden beyond the village farmlands. The temple was built under the roots of an iroko tree that had stood since before anyone could remember. Inside, the air smelled of camwood, dried herbs, and incense. An elderly priestess, Mama Ori, greeted them. "So, the proud child has returned humbled," she said with no malice. Adaeze bowed low. "I seek to pay my debt." "Then you must become a bridge," Mama Ori said. "What does that mean?" The priestess smiled. "You must help others see what you now see. You must guide those who walk in blindness." "You want me to become a priestess?" "No," Mama Ori said. "That is a title. What you must become is a servant of awareness, a light bearer. The forest let you go because you would carry its lesson to others." Adaeze sat silently, processing it all. "And if I refuse?" The fire in the shrine flickered. The walls groaned. The voice from her dream echoed again. "Then we take you back." She didn't ask again. Adaeze began her new path slowly. She returned to the village secondary school and began sharing stories of what happened. Not dramatic tales, but cautionary lessons cloaked in parables. At first, many laughed. But soon, strange things began to happen. One boy who mocked her went into the forest on a dare. He returned 3 days later, silent, unable to speak, eyes wide and haunted. A woman who scoffed at Adaeze's warning saw her newborn fall ill with no medical cause, until she offered a prayer beneath the iroko tree. The villagers slowly began to respect Adaeze's words. But the forest wasn't done with her yet. One rainy evening, there was a knock on the compound gate. Adaeze opened it and gasped. There stood Mama F, soaked, leaning on her staff. Her eyes were wild and her clothes torn. "They've crossed over," she whispered. "Something is wrong. The balance is cracking." "What do you mean?" Adaeze asked, fear rising. Mama F gripped her arm tightly. "The forest is leaking into our world. Something came through that wasn't meant to." Adaeze's blood ran cold. "Then we must go back," she whispered. Mama F nodded. "But this time, prayer alone won't be enough." As thunder rolled over Obodoani, Adaeze stared out into the darkness. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the forest of echoes waited again, more dangerous than before. And this time, Adaeze wasn't going in as a frightened girl. She was going in as a bearer of light. But even light cast shadows. That night, the village air was heavy with silence. The animals didn't stir. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Adaeze packed a small satchel, cowrie charms, a gourd of blessed water, cola nuts, and a sliver of chalk wrapped in banana leaves. Mama Ifyinanya stood at the door, eyes full of pride and fear. "You walk into a place most never return from twice," she said. "But I must," Adaeze replied. "They spared me for a reason. I can't let that be in vain." Behind her, Mama F nodded, her staff wrapped in cloth, her eyes glowing faintly. Together they slipped into the night. As they approached the border where the village path met the forest, something was wrong. Trees had moved. What once had been open trail was now tangled with roots and creeping vines. Even the moonlight seemed nervous, filtering through the canopy like shards of broken glass. Mama F whispered, "The forest is restless. It knows we're coming." They stepped through the barrier, and instantly the air grew colder. The silence was deeper than before, as if sound itself had been swallowed. After walking for nearly an hour, Adaeze noticed something shocking. The same tree, twisted with 3 thick roots like claws, had appeared 3 times. "We're walking in circles." Mama F frowned. "Not us. The forest is folding time, trying to keep us lost." Adaeze closed her eyes and whispered the words of the Ogugu, the prayer of direction her grandmother once taught her. "Spirits of my line, walk before me. Ancestors of wisdom, open my path." Suddenly, the wind shifted, and a faint trail of red petals scattered ahead of them. The forest had heard and allowed them to pass. Deeper inside, they came upon something that should not have existed: a ghost village. Huts sat silently, untouched by time, but clearly abandoned. Cooking pots lay overturned, clothes on lines frozen in a breeze that had long stopped blowing. "What is this place?" Adaeze whispered. "A memory," said Mama F. "Some say the forest keeps the souls of villages forgotten by time." As they walked through the eerie town, a child's laughter rang out. They turned. A small girl in a white wrapper stood by a tree, holding a red ball. "Come play," she said sweetly. Adaeze stepped forward instinctively, but Mama F grabbed her arm. "She's not real." The girl's eyes turned black. Her smile widened unnaturally. "You left us. You left us." She let out a shriek so chilling the leaves fell from the trees. Shadows emerged from the huts. Men, women, children, all with the same hollow eyes. They were the forgotten ones, souls trapped in the forest, looking for someone to blame. "Run!" Mama F shouted, but Adaeze stood firm. Instead of fleeing, she reached into her satchel and threw a handful of chalk powder into the air, tracing the Nsibidi symbol for remembrance. The shadows froze. "I remember you," Adaeze whispered. "I honor you." Slowly, the spirits began to fade, and the village melted into mist. After hours more of travel, the forest opened into a stone clearing Adaeze had never seen before. In the center was a massive tree stump carved with unfamiliar symbols. Around it, the air shimmered with dark energy. Mama F gasped. "This is a tomb of binding," she said. "Something was sealed here long ago." Suddenly the ground cracked. From beneath the stump, smoke poured upward, and a deep inhuman growl echoed through the trees. "Someone broke the seal," Adaeze said, backing away. "Or something did," Mama F added. From the smoke a figure rose. It was tall, faceless, and cloaked in twisting vines and ash. The creature hissed. "You took her." Adaeze's voice trembled. "Who?" "The spirit of mercy," it bellowed. "She who opened the gate for you, she belonged to me." Mama F whispered. "That creature, it's not of this world. It's a Jari Oba, the spirit collector. He followed us back." Adaeze stepped forward, heart pounding. "You seek vengeance, but the gate opened because she chose to show mercy, not weakness." A Jari Oba let out a roar, shaking the trees. "Mercy is imbalance. The forest was perfect until you corrupted it." Suddenly, black vines whipped toward Adaeze. She raised her charm, but the vines wrapped around it, crushing it. All seemed lost. Until a soft voice whispered in the wind. "Pray again." Adaeze knelt. "Not for myself, but for the forest. Not for safety, but for truth. Let balance be restored, not by fear but by wisdom." A bright light burst from her heart, forming a shield between her and a Jari Oba. The spirit screamed and recoiled. The forest groaned, then went still. A Jari Oba vanished into the smoke. The tomb sealed once again. And Adaeze stood in the clearing, trembling but alive. Mama F looked at her with pride. "You didn't just restore the balance," she said. "You became part of it." As they turned back toward the village, the forest, once dark and hungry, seemed lighter now. Peace. But peace is not forever. And as the forest closed behind them, a single vine twitched in the dust. Watching. Waiting. 1 week passed since Adaeze's return. The village celebrated her. Drums echoed through the nights. Children danced, elders spoke her name with pride. Her story spread far. Adaeze, the one who survived the forest not once but twice. But celebration couldn't bury what Adaeze felt. That twitching vine she saw. The way the wind still whispered her name. The forest was not done. Began with the dreams. Adaeze saw fire in the forest. Not burning trees but burning memories. Her father's laugh turned to ash. Her childhood hut crumbling. The spirit she helped screaming. Each night, she awoke drenched in sweat, the smell of smoke in her nose. She confided in Mama Ifyananya. The seal is breaking, the old woman said gravely. Ajari Oba's root still lives. You sealed his spirit, but not his seed. Then what do I do? You go back. One last time. But not as a seeker of peace. As a bearer of judgment. At dawn, Adaeze tied her hair in warrior braids. She wore her mother's red wrapper, the color of fire and fate. In her hands, a new charm carved by Mama Ifyinanya herself. It held a single drop of Adaeze's blood and the ashes of the forest's last sacrifice. Mama F waited by the forest's edge. Are you ready? No, Adaeze whispered. But I'm willing. They stepped through. And this time the forest didn't resist. It opened like a mouth. Deep inside they came to a place that had never been there before. A great tree stood alone, blackened by rot. Its trunk was hollow, its branches twisted like hands in pain. This was the heartroot, the last piece of Ajari Oba. A whisper came from within it. Adaeze, child of defiance. You could have walked away. She stepped forward. I could have. But my silence once fed you. Now my voice ends you. Ajari's laughter rumbled through the soil. The ground split open. From beneath the heartroot, spirits emerged. Not just forgotten ones, but ones Adaeze recognized. Her old classmates. The girl she mocked for praying. The boy who died in the accident she survived. Why do you deserve life, Adaeze? One asked. Why were we not spared? Tears welled in Adaeze's eyes. Because I was meant to carry your memory, she whispered. Not your burden. She knelt and began to pray. But not loudly. Not with words. Just silence. As she closed her eyes, everything stopped. Even the trees. Even time. The spirits circled her, confused. The heartroot shook violently. What is this? Ajari's voice boomed. Adaeze did not speak. She only thought of mercy, truth, and rest. In that moment, the charm in her palm ignited. White light poured from her chest. The spirits shrieked, not in pain but in release. One by one, they turned to golden ash and drifted upward, freed. The heartroot cracked. Ajari Oba's scream filled the forest one last time. New! Then silence. Real silence. Peaceful this time. Adaeze returned to the village at sunset. Her skin was burned in places. Her eyes tired. But her soul was clear. People gathered. No drums this time. Just stillness. She raised her hands and said, I prayed. And this time it wasn't for myself. From that day, Adaeze was no longer seen as the stubborn girl who mocked tradition. She became Nwadiekpir, daughter of prayer. Elders told her story for generations. Children grew up with her tale on their tongues. And deep in the forest of echoes, the trees grew green again. But among them, a single blackened stump remains. Reminder. That prayer isn't always spoken. And silence can be the loudest cry for help. Have you ever ignored a small voice inside you, one that told you to pause to pray? Adaeze did, and it cost her dearly. But she also proved that even in failure we can find purpose. Tell us, what would you have done on that road?